The gavel cracked like a gunshot, silencing the murmurs rippling through Judge Judy's courtroom in downtown Los Angeles. But it wasn't Judge Judy who slammed it. It was the bailiff, desperately trying to restore order as the gallery erupted in chaos. Because what they'd just witnessed wasn't supposed to happen. Not here. Not in a courtroom where justice was supposed to be blind. Sarah Mitchell stood at the defendant's table, designer sunglasses perched on her highlighted blonde hair, a Chanel purse dangling from her wrist, and a smile so smug it could cut glass. She wasn't nervous. She wasn't worried. She was practically glowing with the confidence of someone who'd never faced a real consequence in her entire 24 years of existence. And why would she? Her father, Police Captain Robert Mitchell, sat 3 rows back in full uniform, his chest decorated with commendation bars that glittered under the fluorescent lights. 27 years of service. Decorated officer. The kind of man whose phone calls made problems disappear. The kind of man whose daughter had skipped 4 court appearances, threatened 3 officers, and walked away from it all without so much as a parking ticket sticking to her record. Before we dive into this incredible case, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love seeing where my viewers are around the world. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss more unbelievable cases like this one. Now, sit back, relax, and enjoy the video. Judge Judy sat behind her bench, smaller than the towering judges in most courtrooms, her reading glasses perched on her nose as she flipped through a folder that seemed to grow heavier with every page she turned. The prosecutor, a young woman named Lisa Chen, stood rigid at her table, knuckles white as she gripped her notes. She'd fought for 6 months to get this case to trial. 6 months of stonewalling, of mysteriously misplaced files, of phone calls from higher-ups suggesting she reconsider the optics of prosecuting a decorated captain's daughter. But she hadn't backed down. And now, here they were. The charges were simple on paper but devastating in reality. For missed court appearances for traffic violations. 2 documented incidents of Sarah using her father's credentials to intimidate officers into voiding tickets. 1 recorded phone call where she told a courthouse clerk, and this was a direct quote, "My father has connections throughout this building. 1 call and you're done." The evidence was ironclad. Body camera footage. Audio recordings. Email trails. Phone logs. Everything a prosecutor could dream of, all neatly compiled and ready to present. But Sarah wasn't sweating. Because she had something better than evidence. She had her father's badge. And in this city, that badge had proven more powerful than any judge's gavel. Her attorney, a silver-haired man in a suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, leaned back in his chair with the casual ease of someone who'd gotten plenty of clients off on technicalities and connections. He'd already filed 3 motions to dismiss. All denied. But he wasn't worried either. People like Sarah Mitchell didn't go down. They never did. The system protected them. The system was built for them. Judge Judy removed her glasses, setting them down with a deliberateness that made the courtroom hold its collective breath. She looked at Sarah. Then at Captain Mitchell. Then at the prosecutor who'd refused to let this die. And when she spoke, her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. "Ms. Mitchell," she said, each word measured and precise, "your file here tells me you believe the law is optional. That consequences are for other people. That your father's badge is a get-out-of-jail-free card you can play whenever reality inconveniences you." Sarah's smirk flickered. Just for a second. Just long enough for Judge Judy to notice. "Well," Judge Judy continued, leaning forward slightly, "let me tell you something. In my courtroom, I don't care who your father is. I don't care what badge he wears or what connections he has. Because the law doesn't have a family discount." The gallery shifted. Officers in uniform exchanged glances. Some looked relieved. Some looked uncomfortable. Captain Mitchell's jaw tightened, his hands clasped so hard his knuckles had gone white. Sarah opened her mouth to respond, that confidence still clinging to her like expensive perfume. But before she could speak, Judge Judy held up one finger. "Before you say a word," she said, her voice dropping lower, "more dangerous, I want you to understand something. Your father spent 27 years building a reputation. You're about to find out how fast it can crumble. And not because of what he did. Because of what you did in his name." The courtroom went dead silent. Because everyone in that room just realized the same thing. Judge Judy wasn't here to play nice. She wasn't here to be intimidated by badges or reputations or expensive lawyers. She was here to do something this city hadn't seen in a long time. Hold someone accountable. And Sarah Mitchell, for the first time in her privileged life, was about to learn what that word actually meant. If you want to see how Judge Judy dismantles this entitled behavior piece by piece, hit that subscribe button right now, because what happens next will restore your faith in justice. And trust me, you won't believe how the entire city reacts when this ruling drops. Stick around because this case is about to get explosive. Lisa Chen stood and walked to the evidence table with the kind of controlled precision that came from months of preparation and years of watching cases like this get buried under politics and pressure. She wasn't going to let that happen today. Not here. Not with Judge Judy presiding. She picked up a tablet, her fingers steady despite the weight of every eye in the courtroom fixed on her. "Your Honor," she began, her voice clear and unwavering, "the defendant's pattern of abuse isn't a theory. It's documented. Recorded. Undeniable." She tapped the screen and the monitor mounted on the wall flickered to life. The timestamp read 8 months prior. Night time. A traffic stop on Sunset Boulevard. The officer's body camera showed Sarah's white Mercedes pulled over, hazard lights blinking, music still thumping from inside even after she'd been signaled to stop. Officer James Rodriguez appeared on screen, young, maybe 26, approaching the driver's window with his flashlight. His voice was professional, rehearsed from academy training. "Ma'am, license and registration please. You were doing 53 in a 35 zone and you ran a red light back at Fairfax." Sarah's face appeared in the frame, and even through the grainy body cam footage, her expression was unmistakable. Pure contempt. She didn't hand over her license. She didn't apologize. Instead, she tilted her head and said words that would echo through this courtroom like a death sentence. "Do you know who my father is?" The gallery stirred. A few officers shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This was the moment they all dreaded, the moment that tested whether you were a cop or a politician in a uniform. Rodriguez's response was textbook. "Ma'am, I need your license and registration. Who your family is doesn't matter right now." Sarah's laugh cut through the audio, sharp and mocking. "Captain Robert Mitchell. Ring a bell? He runs half this department. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to call your supervisor, explain that you made a mistake pulling me over, and we're all going to forget this happened." The camera caught Rodriguez's hand, the slight tremor as he keyed his radio. His voice, still professional but now edged with tension. "Dispatch, I need a supervisor to my location." 3 minutes passed on the timestamp. A sergeant arrived. Words were exchanged off camera. Rodriguez's supervisor took him aside, and though the audio was muffled, the body language told the story. The sergeant's hand on Rodriguez's shoulder. The shake of his head. The defeated slump in Rodriguez's posture when he walked back to Sarah's car. "You're free to go, ma'am. Slow down next time." Sarah's response was delivered with a smile that belonged in a courtroom as evidence of sociopathy. "See? That wasn't so hard. Tell your supervisor thank you from the captain's daughter." She drove away. The ticket, which Rodriguez had already written, got voided 20 minutes later. The body cam footage ended. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. Judge Judy's expression hadn't changed, but her pen was moving across her notepad with the kind of angry precision that promised someone was going to pay for what they'd just witnessed. Lisa Chen wasn't done. She tapped the tablet again. That was incident number 1, Your Honor. This is incident number 2. A different screen appeared. Not video this time. A recorded phone call. The timestamp showed 3 weeks after the traffic stop. A court summons had been issued when the ticket somehow reappeared in the system, flagged by an auditor who noticed the unusual dismissal pattern. The audio began. A woman's voice, professional and patient. Los Angeles County Court, this is Clerk Stevens, how may I help you? Sarah's voice came through, and this time there was no traffic noise, no stress of being pulled over. This was calculated. Cold. Yes, this is Sarah Mitchell. MITCHELL. I received a court summons that's clearly a mistake. I need it dismissed immediately. Ma'am, if you received a summons, you'll need to appear in court on the date specified or retain legal counsel to represent you. Sarah's tone shifted, dropping the fake politeness like a mask she was tired of wearing. I don't think you understand who you're speaking to. My father is Captain Robert Mitchell. He has connections throughout this courthouse. If this summons isn't dismissed by end of business today, I'll make sure he knows exactly who was unhelpful. There was a pause on the recording. When the clerk spoke again, her voice was smaller, uncertain. Ma'am, I can't just dismiss a summons. There are procedures. Then I suggest you find someone who can. Because trust me, you don't want to be the reason I have to make that phone call. The recording ended. The clerk in question, Stevens, was sitting in the gallery. Her face had gone pale, reliving that moment when she'd been threatened by a 24-year-old with nothing but her father's name as a weapon. Lisa Chen set the tablet down and picked up a thick manila folder. Your Honor, after that call, something interesting happened. The file for Sarah Mitchell's case was marked for review. It sat in that status for 2 months. During that time, according to phone logs I've submitted as Exhibit C, 3 calls were made from Captain Mitchell's office phone directly to the courthouse administration. She opened the folder, spreading documents across the evidence table like a card dealer revealing a royal flush. Call 1, February 15, 9 a.m. Duration, 4 minutes. The next day, the case file was moved to a different department. She pointed to another document. Call 2, March 2, 2 p.m. Duration, 7 minutes. 3 days later, the assigned prosecutor requested reassignment due to quote, scheduling conflicts. That prosecutor, when interviewed, said the pressure to drop it came from his supervisor. Another document. Call 3, March 23, 11 a.m. Duration, 12 minutes. The following week, the entire file was marked as lost in system transition. Judge Judy looked up from her own notes. How did you find this file if it was lost? Lisa Chen smiled, and it was the smile of someone who'd spent 6 months digging through bureaucratic garbage to find gold. Because I'm stubborn, Your Honor. And because one clerk, Stevens, made a backup copy before the file disappeared. She knew something was wrong. Sarah's attorney stood abruptly, his voice booming with manufactured outrage. Your Honor, this is speculation and conspiracy theory. There's no direct evidence that Captain Mitchell made those calls regarding this specific case. Judge Judy removed her glasses, fixing the attorney with a look that could melt steel. Counselor, sit down. I'm not finished hearing the evidence. He sat. Lisa Chen wasn't done either. She called her next witness. The people call Officer James Rodriguez to the stand. Rodriguez stood from the gallery, and every officer in that room watched him walk to the witness stand like he was walking to his own execution. Taking on a captain's family, even indirectly, was career suicide in a department where loyalty often mattered more than truth. The bailiff swore him in. Rodriguez sat, his uniform crisp, his face showing the exhaustion of someone who'd been carrying this weight for months. Officer Rodriguez, Lisa began gently, tell the court what happened after you submitted your report on the Sarah Mitchell traffic stop. Rodriguez took a breath. 2 days later, my lieutenant called me into his office. He told me Captain Mitchell was handling the situation internally. Family matter. Discipline at home. He said the ticket would be voided and I should consider the matter closed. Did you consider it closed? No, ma'am. Because a week later, I saw Ms. Mitchell driving the same car, speeding through the same area, no consequences. That's when I knew it wasn't being handled. It was being buried. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Judge Judy's gavel came down once, sharp and final. Order restored instantly. Sarah's attorney jumped up again. Objection. This is hearsay regarding what the lieutenant allegedly said. Judge Judy's response was ice. Overruled. The officer is testifying to his direct experience. Continue, Ms. Chen. Lisa Chen pulled up one final piece of evidence. Another body cam video. Different officer. Different traffic stop. Same white Mercedes. Same entitled defendant. This time, Sarah didn't even let the officer finish his opening statement before she launched into her threat. Badge number. Give me your badge number right now. My father is Captain Mitchell and by tomorrow you'll be. Judge Judy held up her hand, and the video paused. She looked at Sarah, whose face had transformed from smug confidence to something resembling panic as she watched her own behavior displayed for everyone to see. The evidence was overwhelming. Undeniable. Damning. And Sarah Mitchell, for the first time, realized that her father's badge might not be enough to save her. Not here. Not today. Not with Judge Judy presiding over a courtroom that was quickly becoming less about traffic violations and more about whether justice in Los Angeles applied to everyone or just to people without connections. The answer to that question was about to be delivered. And it would stun the entire city. Sarah's attorney stood, his expensive suit suddenly looking less impressive under the weight of the evidence that had just buried his client. He cleared his throat, reaching for the only strategy left when facts abandon you. Sympathy. Your Honor, my client is a young woman who made errors in judgment during stressful situations. She's 24 years old, still learning how to navigate adult responsibilities. These weren't malicious acts, they were. Judge Judy cut him off with the precision of a surgeon's scalpel. Counselor, I just watched your client threaten multiple officers, intimidate a court clerk, and weaponize her father's position 4 separate times. That's not poor judgment. That's a pattern. That's a lifestyle choice. The attorney's face flushed but he pressed forward. Your Honor, if I may call my client to explain. Oh, I'd love to hear this, Judge Judy said, leaning back in her chair. Ms. Mitchell approached the stand. Sarah stood, and for the first time since entering the courtroom, her confidence wavered. Her steps toward the witness stand were slower, more measured. Gone was the swagger. The smirk had been replaced by something that almost looked like concern. Almost. The bailiff swore her in. She sat, smoothing her designer dress, buying time to construct whatever narrative she thought might save her. Judge Judy didn't give her that time. Ms. Mitchell, in your own words, explain to me why you threatened Officer Rodriguez with your father's position. Sarah's voice, when it came, was softer than before. Practiced. Your Honor, I was scared. It was late at night, I was alone, and I just wanted him to know that I wasn't some random person who what? Judge Judy interrupted. Who deserved to be treated like everyone else? Who should face consequences for breaking the law? Sarah's mask slipped. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean when you told him your father would have him directing traffic in the valley by Monday? The courtroom held its breath. Sarah opened her mouth, closed it, tried again. I was upset. People say things when they're upset. Judge Judy leaned forward, her voice dropping to that dangerous quiet that somehow carried more weight than shouting ever could. You said similar things 4 different times, Ms. Mitchell. To 4 different people. Were you upset all 4 times, or is this just who you are? Sarah's composure cracked. You don't understand what it's like being a police captain's daughter. Everyone expects you to be perfect, and when you make mistakes, it reflects on him. I was trying to protect his reputation. By destroying it. Judge Judy's words hit like a hammer. By showing everyone that his daughter believes his badge puts her above the law. That's not protection. That's humiliation. Sarah's attorney tried to interject, but Judge Judy raised a hand, silencing him without even looking in his direction. Let me ask you something else, Ms. Mitchell. When you called that courthouse clerk and threatened her job, did you think about her? Did you consider that she might have a family depending on that paycheck? That she might lose sleep worrying about whether a police captain's daughter could actually get her fired? Sarah's eyes dropped to her hands. No answer came. Because there was no answer that wouldn't make her look exactly like what she was, entitled, callous, and completely disconnected from the reality most people lived in. Judge Judy let the silence stretch, let it fill every corner of the courtroom until it became its own form of testimony. Then she delivered the blow that would change everything. Ms. Mitchell, you just threatened another officer on that body cam footage we watched. Do you remember what you said? Give me your badge number right now. My father is Captain Mitchell and by tomorrow you'll be, she paused, looking directly at Sarah. Finish that sentence for me. By tomorrow that officer will be what? Sarah's face went pale. Her attorney grabbed her arm, leaning in to whisper urgently, but the damage was done. The threat was clear. The pattern was undeniable. And Judge Judy had just made sure everyone in that courtroom understood exactly what kind of person they were dealing with. Judge Judy's gaze shifted from Sarah's crumbling facade to the back of the courtroom where Captain Robert Mitchell sat motionless in his uniform, watching his daughter self-destruct in real time. Captain Mitchell, Judge Judy's voice cut through the tension like a blade. Stand up. The gallery turned as one. Every head swiveled to watch the decorated officer rise slowly from his seat. His uniform was immaculate, 3 stripes visible on his sleeve, commendation bars lined across his chest like armor that suddenly felt paper-thin. His face, weathered by 27 years of night shifts and dangerous calls, looked 10 years older than it had an hour ago. Captain, Judge Judy continued, her tone firm but not hostile, you've sat there silent through this entire proceeding. Your daughter has used your name as a weapon, your position as a shield, and your badge as a get-out-of-jail-free card. Do you have anything to say about that? The courtroom went silent. Sarah looked at her father, her eyes pleading. Don't do it, Daddy. Don't abandon me now. Captain Mitchell's jaw worked, muscles tensing and releasing as he wrestled with something that had clearly been eating at him for months. When he finally spoke, his voice was rough, barely above a whisper, but in that silent courtroom it carried like thunder. Your Honor, I failed. Those 2 words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Officers in the gallery exchanged glances. Some leaned forward. This wasn't what anyone expected. I failed as a father, he continued, voice growing stronger, steadier. I taught my daughter that rules mattered. That the law applied to everyone equally. And then I showed her something completely different. Sarah's face crumpled. Dad, please don't, Sarah, be quiet, he said, not unkindly, but with finality. He turned back to Judge Judy. The first time she called me from a traffic stop, I should have told her to take her ticket and learn from it. Instead, I made a call. I pulled strings. I told myself I was protecting her from a system that can be harsh on young people. His hands clenched at his sides. But I wasn't protecting her. I was teaching her that my badge made her special. That she didn't have to follow the same rules as everyone else. Every time I fixed something for her, I built another brick in a wall between her and reality. The gallery was transfixed. One officer in the 3rd row nodded slowly, recognition in his eyes. He'd faced this same temptation with his own kid. 27 years I've worn this uniform, Your Honor. I've arrested people for less than what my daughter has done. I've testified against defendants who showed the same pattern of behavior we've seen here today. And the entire time, I was enabling the exact same thing in my own home. Judge Judy listened without interruption, something rare in her courtroom. There was a difference between excuses and accountability, and she recognized which one she was hearing. Captain Mitchell's voice cracked as he turned to face Sarah fully. "Sarah, I love you more than anything in this world. But I've done you no favors. I've crippled you. I've turned you into someone who believes consequences are for other people." Tears streamed down Sarah's face now, her expensive makeup running in dark streaks. "Daddy, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "Yes, you did," he said quietly. "You meant every threat. Every call. Every time you dropped my name. And I taught you that it would work." He turned back to Judge Judy, standing straighter now, shoulders squared like he was facing a review board. Which, in a way, he was. "Your Honor, my daughter deserves whatever penalty you see fit. No leniency because of me. No special treatment because of this uniform. And I." He paused, the next words clearly costing him everything. "I formally request that my department open an internal investigation into every case where I made calls regarding my daughter. Every string I pulled. Every file I influenced. All of it." The courtroom erupted. Whispers became voices, became a wave of shock that even the bailiff's calls for order couldn't immediately silence. Officers stared at each other in disbelief. An internal investigation was career suicide. Everyone knew it. Captain Mitchell had just voluntarily ended the career he'd spent nearly 3 decades building. Judge Judy stood, and the simple act of rising from her chair commanded absolute silence in a way the bailiff's gavel never could. This was the moment every person in that courtroom had been waiting for, the moment that would either restore faith in the system or confirm that badges still mattered more than justice. She looked at Sarah Mitchell, then at Captain Mitchell, then at the prosecutor who'd refused to let this case die, and finally at the gallery filled with officers, reporters, and citizens who'd come to witness whether accountability still existed in Los Angeles. "Sarah Mitchell," Judge Judy began, her voice clear and unwavering, "you are found guilty of contempt of court for 4 willful failures to appear." Sarah's knees buckled slightly. Her attorney grabbed her elbow to steady her. "The fine is $25,000. Non-negotiable, non-reducible, payable within 60 days. If you fail to pay, we add interest and extend consequences." The gallery stirred, but Judge Judy wasn't finished. Not even close. "Furthermore, you will complete 100 hours of community service. But not the kind where you show up at a food bank for a photo opportunity and call it charity." She paused, letting the weight of her next word settle. "You will complete those hours here, in this courthouse, doing clerical work. Filing paperwork. Processing tickets. You will see the system you tried to game from the inside. You will watch people who can't afford fancy lawyers navigate the same justice system you tried to cheat. And maybe, just maybe, you'll learn that court dates aren't suggestions." Sarah's face had gone from pale to gray. The community service alone would destroy her carefully curated social media presence, her image as the untouchable daughter of power. Judge Judy leaned forward, her reading glasses catching the light. "You will also write formal apologies to every officer you threatened, every clerk you intimidated, and every citizen whose case was delayed because resources were wasted chasing you down." The attorney started to object, but Judge Judy cut him off with a look. "Those apologies will be published in the Los Angeles Times. Full page. Your name. Your face. Your words. Public and permanent. You wanted to use your father's name to get special treatment. Now everyone gets to see that name attached to your consequences." A reporter in the back scribbled furiously, already mentally writing the headline. "Additionally," Judge Judy continued, "I'm recommending to the state bar and any licensing boards relevant to your employment that they review your character and fitness. Your actions demonstrate a fundamental disrespect for legal processes." Sarah worked in event planning at a venue that required background checks and bonding. This recommendation could end that career before it really started. But Judge Judy wasn't done. And finally, Ms. Mitchell, you will be subject to random court compliance checks over the next 12 months. We will summon you. You will appear. No excuses, no phone calls, no daddy's badge. If you miss even one appearance, the fine triples to $75,000 and you will face jail time. Do I make myself absolutely clear? Sarah's voice was barely audible. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Judy's expression softened almost imperceptibly as she turned to Captain Mitchell, still standing at attention in the back row. Captain Mitchell, your daughter is 24 years old. A legal adult. Her choices today are hers to own. You enabled them, yes, but she made them. The captain's jaw tightened, but he nodded. However, Judge Judy continued, what you did here today took more courage than most people show in their entire lives. You didn't make excuses. You didn't hide behind your rank. You faced the truth and demanded accountability for yourself. That tells me something about your character that 27 years of commendations already showed. A few officers in the gallery nodded, their respect for Mitchell somehow growing even as his career crumbled. Your department's investigation will determine what happens to your career, Judge Judy said. But in my courtroom, you've shown that you understand something your daughter is just learning. The badge is a responsibility, not a privilege. It's meant to protect others, not your family from consequences. The gavel came down, sharp and final. This case is concluded. Bailiff, ensure Ms. Mitchell receives her payment schedule and community service assignment. We're adjourned. The sound of that gavel echoed through the courtroom like a thunderclap, and in that moment, everything changed. Sarah stood on shaking legs, her attorney supporting her as they gathered papers with trembling hands. She looked back at her father one last time, but Captain Mitchell had already turned toward the exit, his shoulders carrying a weight that had nothing to do with his uniform. Outside the courtroom doors, the hallway exploded into chaos. News cameras that had been waiting for hours surged forward. Reporters shouted questions over each other, their voices blending into an incomprehensible roar. Captain Mitchell, do you regret protecting your daughter? Ms. Mitchell, will you appeal the ruling? Judge Judy, can you comment on, but the principals in this drama had already disappeared through different exits, leaving the media to chase ghosts and file stories that would dominate every news cycle in Los Angeles for the next 72 hours. Inside the courtroom, Officer Rodriguez sat quietly in the gallery, a small smile on his face. Not satisfaction, not vindication, just relief. The system had worked. For once, it had actually worked. Lisa Chen, the prosecutor, packed her briefcase methodically, allowing herself one moment of quiet triumph before heading back to her office where 14 other cases waited, most of them nowhere near as clear-cut as this one had been. And in the empty courtroom, after everyone had filed out and the lights dimmed, Judge Judy sat alone at her bench for just a moment, looking at the California state seal mounted on the wall behind her chair. She'd presided over thousands of cases in her career, but something about this one felt different. Maybe it was the father's courage. Maybe it was watching someone finally learn that privilege has limits. Or maybe it was simply the satisfaction of proving that in her courtroom, at least, justice wasn't for sale. If you're feeling that justice just got served in the most satisfying way possible, you're absolutely right, but what happens next will shock you even more. Smash that like button if you appreciate judges who don't back down to power or privilege, and keep watching because the way this city reacts is about to make history. The real earthquake is just beginning. Within hours, the story exploded across every Los Angeles news channel. Social media erupted with hashtags like #BadgeAbuse and #JudgeJudyJustice trending nationwide. The police chief called an emergency press conference, announcing a comprehensive review of every case involving officers' family members over the past 5 years. Captain Mitchell requested desk duty and surrendered his command voluntarily. The city council fast-tracked the Equal Justice Resolution, mandating body cam reviews for voided tickets and creating anonymous reporting systems for pressured dismissals. Sarah's published apology in the Los Angeles Times became the most read article of the year. Reform had begun. Therein lay the profound lesson woven through every moment of this case. This wasn't just about Sarah Mitchell learning that Daddy's badge couldn't shield her forever. It wasn't just about Captain Mitchell's courage to demand accountability for himself. It was about something far bigger, far more essential to the foundation of justice itself. When one person skates on privilege while others drown under the weight of consequences for identical actions, the entire system loses credibility. Every citizen watching asks the same corrosive question: why should I follow laws that don't apply equally? Judge Judy's ruling that day proved something Los Angeles desperately needed to see. That courtrooms can still be places where your last name doesn't determine your outcome, where badges don't buy immunity, where justice can actually be blind to power and connections. Real reform doesn't happen because judges are tough. It happens because prosecutors like Lisa Chin refuse to let cases die under political pressure. Because officers like Rodriguez find the courage to testify against a captain's family. Because citizens demand accountability and refuse to accept that some people are simply above consequences. Sarah's transformation from entitled defendant to courthouse clerk filing the same paperwork she once mocked became a symbol. Captain Mitchell teaching ethics at the police academy, using his own failure as the cautionary tale, became another. These weren't just punishments. They were proof that people can change when the system finally holds them accountable. The law isn't a suggestion for the powerless and a formality for the connected. It's a promise we must actively defend, one case at a time, one honest ruling at a time, until privilege stops being a get-out-of-jail-free card and justice truly means justice for everyone. That's not naive idealism. That's the only way democracy survives. And on that day in Judge Judy's courtroom, democracy won. If this story of real accountability and transformation moved you, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another case where justice actually works. Share this video with someone who needs to see that the system can still deliver fairness when we demand it. And drop a comment: what would you have ruled if you were the judge? Thanks for watching, and remember, the law doesn't care about your last name, and neither should justice.